The new Federal Census Bureau report shows that states made more than $5.7 billion in marijuana tax revenue over an 18-month period. Just 18 months, and just 23 or less states made $5.7 billion. $5.7 billion! What are we doing? Why haven't we legalized it yet? It's a good question. The U.S. Census Bureau has released its first report on state-level marijuana tax revenue data following what the agency calls a complete canvass of all state agencies going back to July 2021. In the 18-month period between then and the end of 2022, the data show states collected more than $5.7 billion from licensed cannabis sales, not accounting for what's not licensed and what they're missing out on. So that's like a conservative number, which is insane. The launch of the report, which the agency plans to update on a quarterly basis going forward, Cannabis Quarterly, now you know exactly why I named it this, signals that at least some parts of the federal government are now beginning to treat the cannabis industry as a legitimate sector of the economy. The Census Bureau first announced in January 2021 that it would begin collecting tax figures for its quarterly summary of state and local government tax revenue. It also said it wants states to submit cannabis revenue data as part of annual reports as well. That's what we are going to be doing. All those reports are going to be able to be found here when those become available. The first edition of the quarterly data was published late last month, just weeks after the Bureau announced it would separately update its survey of American businesses to better marijuana-related economic activity. We need to be included in all economic data as a legitimate sector, and we will be. Together, the new tracking and reporting efforts, which come nearly a decade after the first state legal sales of adult-use cannabis in the U.S., indicate an increasingly willingness by the federal government to acknowledge the billions of dollars flowing into state coffers annually as a result of state-level legalization, even as the substance remains federally illegal. Totals from various U.S. states reflect both the size of the individual state markets and the amount of time they've been open for business. For example, Washington State and Colorado, the first two states to legalize non-medical marijuana, collected the second and third most tax revenue during the period, respectively. $818 million, $648 million. California's massive market produced more than $1.4 billion in sales tax revenue over a year and a half, while revenue in New York, only about two dozen retailers have opened statewide since sales began in December 2022, totaled $27 million. So obviously these numbers are going to keep climbing, obviously, as more cannabis dispensaries open and more businesses become legitimate. The census data includes sales from both medical and adult use markets and does not disaggregate the revenue between the two. The new data results from a complete canvass of all state government agencies, the Bureau said in a note about the survey. While it initially refers to revenue as, quote, quarterly cannabis excise sales tax collections, it later says that taxes are defined rather broadly. Now, I can't get over this enough. The fact that they're saying that this is going to be a quarterly report. I mean this is why I named this Cannabis Quarterly, so that you can have an accurate representation of what you should be investing, where you should be investing, what's the best places to invest in, and so forth. For this data set, the concept of taxes is comprised of all compulsory contributions exacted by a government for public purposes. It's a lot of word salad. Tax revenue is further defined to include related penalty and interest receipts of a government, but to exclude protested amounts. The Bureau has two separate tax codes for marijuana revenue, one for taxes on cannabis transactions and another for business license fees. It's not clear whether the totals in the new report include sales tax figures alone or revenue from both categories. That would be a little misleading if you're qualifying the licensing fees as the government saying that's revenue. That's a little disingenuous, but I can't control that. But of course, they're going to boost the numbers. They want the numbers to be bigger so that more people will understand that it's a legitimate business. So for that, that's no different than any other business, just inflating their numbers to look better. The agency said its own figures might not align perfectly with state-reported data, quote, because the Census Bureau may be using a different definition of which organizations are covered by the terms state government. The Bureau's definition refers not only to the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of a given state, but it also includes agencies, institutions, commissions, and public authorities, which are more local municipalities, things like that. That likely means tax revenue retained by city and county governments is captured by the state numbers because those funds are typically collected by state officials before being dispersed to municipalities. Marijuana industry representatives welcomed the federal acknowledgement of the sector's economic contribution, but said that much more change, including reforms to tax laws and ongoing criminalization, are needed. This data highlights the fact that legal cannabis markets are making positive contribution to their communities. However, we still aren't even close to reaching our full potential to replace criminal markets with tax-paying regulated businesses, and that's the truth. There is so much missed revenue, missed tax, and missed opportunity in the illegal gray black market. It's long past time for lawmakers to take action and improve conditions for the industry. Reforming outdated banking regulations would immediately help the existing state-based market grow, generate even more tax revenue, and ultimately we need federal descheduling to truly unleash the industry's full potential. Again, we've said this every time. Soon as you unlock that regulation, cash is going to just flow into the economy. It's that simple, but you got to be ready for it. David Culver, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for the U.S. Cannabis Council, said that the group is thrilled to see the Census Bureau collect and analyze data on the growing number of state cannabis markets around the country. Legalizing and regulating cannabis is not only the right thing to do, it's fiscally prudent. One notable trend in the newly published census data is an overall dip in the nationwide marijuana tax revenue during the reporting period. The second quarter saw a peak of about $839 million. Otherwise, revenue trended down between the third quarter and the second quarter. Notably, the current Census Bureau reporting period does not include the bulk of sales from this year, during which some states have broken monthly records. Like, we have a video, you can go check it out. In August, 6 states hit record numbers in all of their sales, and those numbers aren't included in here. So it looks like they're ticking down. Also an indicator of the economy, economic times, financial instability. People are tightening their wallets and being a little bit more particular with what they're buying. In Illinois, unprecedented growth, selling more than $1.5 billion. Maryland sold a record amount of adult use cannabis in September, even as medical sales fell. In New Mexico, September missed the monthly record of August, which we covered. Rhode Island, Montana, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan reached another high in July. Missouri. States are continuing to shatter records of sales. And collectively, in 18 months, the first report from the U.S. Census Bureau, as legit of a bureau as we have, right? $5.7 billion in sales. And that's probably a conservative estimate if you take in the fact that California has so many unregulated and unlicensed shops. I'm sure Florida does too. I'm sure a lot of other states do as well. New York. There's a lot of missed revenue that can go on top of the 5.7. I'd go to say it's probably over 6, maybe 7. But that's going to grow annually. That's crazy. That's insane. $5.7 billion. And people think that, oh, it's just cannabis. Don't be short-sighted. Don't be like that. In these times where we need all the help we can get to get us out of the situation we're in, cannabis is it. Hemp is it for so many reasons that we continue to go into on this channel, which is why this channel exists. I'm going to pin all of these articles in the comments for you or in the description. Please check them out one by one. I'll always do that. And stay blessed.